Hear from the Government Publishing Office about their budget request. Until 5 years ago, this organization was known as the Government Printing Office, reflecting its historic mission of communicating information through the printed word. As technology for disseminating information has changed from ink on paper to digital media and online access, GPO's role has changed as well, and hence the name change. There will be a continuing role for printed material in the conduct of government business, and GPO will therefore be doing printing for a long time to come. But GPO is now distributing more and more information by digital means, such as through its upgraded and steadily growing website, now called GovInfo. Whatever the format, GPO's fundamental function is making information about the operations of government, particularly the Congress, readily available to the public. That's a crucial function in a democracy. GPO's appropriations request for 2020 is $117 million, the same as its appropriation for 2019, and substantially less than it received 10 years ago. This is a case where technological advances have produced real cost savings, as typesetting and printing processes have become more efficient, and as the rise of electronic documents have greatly reduced the volume of printed material produced. Here to tell us about GPO's budget request and its work is Herb Jackson, the acting Deputy Director. Mr. Jackson is representing GPO today because the position of GPO Director is currently vacant. He has more than 3 decades of experience at GPO, including service in various management, procurement, and administrative positions. Before we hear from Mr. Jackson, I'll yield to our ranking member, Ms. Herrera-Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say welcome to Mr. Jackson, who is both Acting Deputy Director and Chief Administrative Officer at the GPO. GPO's important mission of keeping us informed, keeping America informed, really. And you do that by providing permanent access to the federal government information at no charge to the public through your federal depository library program, which partners with over 1,140 libraries nationwide and GovInfo. They produce and distribute products for services for all 3 branches of the federal government, including U.S. passports, which I did not realize, and official publications of Congress and the White House. And you operate distribution centers to fulfill orders for government publications. I would like to recognize that the GPO recognize the Government Publishing Office for receiving your 22nd consecutive clean audit opinion. That is no small feat, and it is made possible in large part by the outstanding work of GPO's finance team, which is under the leadership of, I'm not going to say Bill, thank you. I was like, I'm not going to say it right. Bill Besh, the current acting CFO, who has been dedicated public servant at GPO since, I'm going to say this, the year just before I was born. No, just after I was born. So, congratulations. And so he was my target yesterday. So
Yeah,
you know, we got to keep it real.
Pattern's developing here. I just want you to know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to hearing GPO's testimony.
Thank you. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Chairman Ryan, Ranking Member Herrera-Butler, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for inviting me here today to discuss GPO's appropriations request for fiscal year 2020. With me at the table today are Lau Green, who is our Managing Director for GPO's Official Journals of Government, Bill Besh, who we've met, who is our Acting Chief Financial Officer, and Rick Davis, who is our Acting Chief of Staff and Chief Technology Officer. I've been at the GPO for 38 years and have served since July of last year as the Acting Deputy Director. It is these gentlemen, along with John Crawford seated behind me, who will form the nucleus of GPO's leadership following my impending retirement on March 31st of this year.
What?
I can think of no finer team of professionals to lead GPO while we await the confirmation of a new agency director. I am confident that the GPO will be in good hands. As you know, GPO is responsible for publishing congressional publications and for making them known to the public. Our mission derives from the requirement in Article 1, Paragraph 5 of the Constitution, which says, each House of Congress shall keep a journal of its proceedings and from time to time publish the same. The Government Printing Office, as we were named until December 2014, was established to carry out that publishing mission on Congress's behalf. For most of our history, we did this by printing and distributing congressional publications. However, for the past quarter century, we have deployed digital technologies to carry out our mission. As a result, we are now named the Government Publishing Office, where printing is just one of the many publishing technologies we employ. Today, for the House and Senate, we produce congressional documents, the daily congressional record, bills, reports, hearings, committee prints, and other documents in digital and print, providing official information to the forms and formats that Congress needs to carry out its constitutional legislative mission while providing public access to these documents nationwide. Our use of modern publishing technologies has significantly reduced the cost of GPO's operations. Computerized typesetting, for example, and related technologies have cut the cost of congressional printing by more than 73% since 1980. In addition to reducing the cost of disseminating congressional products and other government information, digitization has dramatically expanded our ability to provide public access to these important materials. Last year, our online services provided access to more than 2.5 million titles. The service averaged more than 31 million document retrievals a month. It has also enabled us to scale down our workforce. Today, the GPO employs approximately 1,690 men and women across the country, compared to over 6,400 men and women that the agency employed when I first started in 1980. I'm very proud that we were able to achieve this streamlining through natural attrition and by dramatically enhancing our productivity through diligent management and prudent investments in information technology. As a result, our total appropriations request of $117 million for fiscal year 2020 is the same as last year's request and is tied for the lowest overall number in the past 16 years. That request consists of three distinct component accounts. Our congressional publishing account, where we are requesting $79 million for fiscal 2020. Funding for this account has been flat since fiscal year 2014. For the public information programs of the Superintendent of Documents, we are asking for $31,296,000 to expand our efforts to bring more digital products into the Federal Depository Library Program, which averages approximately 3 libraries per congressional district nationwide. Our business operations revolving fund account, we are seeking $6,704,000 to continue development of our online system called GovInfo and to pay for necessary cybersecurity measures. The investments that this subcommittee has made in GovInfo are paying rich dividends for the American people. Just this past year, we were able to retire our older website called FDSys as the more modern and dynamic GovInfo was brought fully online. Less than 1 month after FDSys was officially retired, GovInfo recorded a significant accomplishment by securing ISO Trustworthy Digital Repository certification, becoming the first organization in the United States and just the second organization in the entire world to achieve this distinction. We also enjoyed several other milestones this year, which marked the 10th anniversary of our secure production facility in Stennis, Mississippi, and GPO has produced more than 21 million secure identification credentials for the Department of Homeland Security and other federal agencies. As someone who has worked at the GPO for many years, I have witnessed, as you might imagine, a remarkable transition into the digital age. And I am extremely proud to report, as you've indicated, that once again, for the 22nd consecutive year, GPO has earned a clean or unmodified opinion on its finances by the independent outside auditors who perform our annual audit. And as you've stated already, that is attributed directly to the work that Bill Besha and his team does. Before I conclude, Mr. Chairman, I want to say what an honor it has been for me to work at GPO alongside such committed public servants like those joining me here at the table, those seated behind me, those located at our headquarters office in DC, those in our regional offices, and those in our other facilities across the country. For 38 years, I've been proud to serve with some of the most dedicated employees in the federal government. Regardless of the demands of the legislative schedule and regardless of the conditions under which they have to work, whether there is inclement weather or a government shutdown, the men and women of the GPO will be there to support you in carrying out your mission. So, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Herrera Butler and other members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify today, and I'm happy to answer your questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Appreciate your years of service.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your retirement. I'm sure you have a calendar up in your office with a red pen.
Yeah.
The days. Yeah. I'm sure that's exciting. Thank you, Ms. Herrera Butler. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I always lean into this like I'm going to hear myself more. Like, I've got to get used to these things. This past year, so we talked a little bit about some of the accomplishments, and I too want to commend you on your years of service.
Thank you.
Must feel good to be almost done.
Yeah.
Right? If you need to go to Hawaii, we have our resident. He can tell you where to go.
That's
Distinguishment from Hawaii.
that's a little Codell we'll have. We're all going.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to bring up a couple of areas where I see that there could be improvement and ask you about
Sure.
it. The first one has to do with cybersecurity. So I'm not sure if I probably would direct it right at you, and you can. February 4th of this year, an article was published on nextgov.com titled "GPO has no disaster recovery plan for its tech," Watchdog says. And obviously, we just got finished a little hearing about the need for a taxpayer watchdog. The article goes on to summarize some of the IT findings outside auditors, KPMG, observed, and it goes on to say that the number of IT issues were first identified, a number of them, in 2011, including GPO's unpreparedness and emergency planning and poor IT in terms of access controls. So it's now 2019. And I want to understand why these issues haven't been resolved, and
Sure.
give you a chance to speak to them.
I'll start, and then I'll ask
yeah.
our Chief Technology Officer to chime in. The issues have been resolved, and the account management procedures will be provided to the IG by the 15th of March of this year. GPO is now tracking separate accounts, so accounts can be closed as soon as they are reported. For example, HR accounts, when employees leave, one of the sightings was that there was no way of knowing that that employee left because their information was still in the system. There's a new tracking system, I understand now, that's in place that will help alleviate that issue. Another automated control is now to place automatically disable inactive accounts, so that when people leave and the account, for example, has not been used for a number of days or so, it will automatically disable. Rick, you want to add to that?
Thank you, Herb. As Herb mentioned, I'm the Chief Technology Officer at GPO. The IT infrastructure falls under our Chief Information Officer. We recently brought on board a Chief Information Officer in the past year or so, who, by the way, has a very, very strong background in IT security, which is helping us tremendously. To add to what Herb mentioned about access controls, which are being addressed, I also want to note that there is an IT contingency plan that is being developed by our new CIO that will be completed by the 15th. But prior to that, there are detailed procedures that have been in operation apart from a plan that guide us on failover to a COOP site, as well as security measures. So while I believe that report was very factually accurate to a degree, I think it left out some details about procedural controls that are in place. We do monthly testing, we do failover and failback, and we do a lot of tabletop exercises as well. In addition, we do a lot of COOP activities, also with members of Congress that have been performed successfully. So we can definitely do things better in this regard, but I think we're doing some things very well right now.
I think
as
that
well.
was part of my concern was the need for a carefully documented contingency plan. I mean, the contingency plan, I think, is the bigger issue. Yes, I also think making sure that you're closing accounts and revoking security clearances so that former employees or, you just never know. You don't want people to have access on the outside. So I think that's critical, but I will look forward to seeing that March 15th contingency plan.
And we can make sure that you get a copy of that
That'd
contingency plan as soon as it's released.
That'd be great.
Rick and I met recently with the CIO, and he assured us that we would have that plan then, and we'll make certain that you get it.
One more question, then I will go back to our chairman. In the last year, GPO had entered into a contract to procure printing contracts for the census with a company who went bankrupt. Yay. Forcing the government to spend $5 million to end a contract, right? So that we could move on to a more financially stable vendor. I just want to hear what the learning curve was, what plans are in place you think that can help avoid a $5 million problem?
That $5.5 million settlement was an agreement between Justice Census and the vendor to get the vendor out of that contract. Yes, there were a number of things that should have happened that possibly didn't happen. One, we could have done a better job with what we would call a pre-award survey in terms of looking at the financials of that particular company. The company was doing business for GPO and was successful in all of its dealings with us. However, when it came time for this particular award, some of those things were not fact-checked. What we've done
Meaning someone who was in the process of overseeing the account and letting the award didn't do their due diligence.
Their due diligence was not done.
And double-check the financials of someone.
Exactly correct. But there's some other things that I think that are prudent to this as well to ensure that that doesn't happen again. One, we have revised our contract review board policies in terms of contracts of this magnitude need to go through a certain process of review so that there will be a senior person that reviews those contracts, that legal will have a review of those contracts prior to an award being made. Since that time, once we terminated that contract, or the contract was terminated, we began to...
Go ahead, finish up.
What we did was we took the time to work with Census. We led a new contract. The award has been made of the new contract, and R. Donnelly is working well with us now.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. We're going to be adhering to the 5-minute rule too. So, Mr. Case, you're up.
A couple of questions, all going back to the general theme of general public usage of GAO. So, what are the trend lines on general public usage? So, to get to that, I'm trying to just kind of track the money here. So, you've got this appropriation accounting for somewhere around 13%, which is to Congress of your total budget. So, if you were to look at your total budget, that usage comes from obviously Congress. You have general public usage of your publications, and you have agencies, right? Agencies of government. I mean, do you have a figure as to, of that total budget, how much of that is actual agencies versus direct congressional usage, congressional needs, versus how much is the general public out there actually, accessing?
Bill is saying that that's about 86%. He doesn't want to talk. But approximately 14% of what's appropriated is used, of the appropriated budget is used towards agency expenses. The 86% that Bill is referencing is what is used for congressional and the like.
That's used for the purchase printing that we buy
Right.
on behalf of the executive agencies. and also for the sale of passports and other smart card type documents. 86% of our revenue approximately.
Okay, that's bigger than I thought. So the general public usage is 86%, but that's passports also, right? So that's huge, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has to have, most people have to get a passport, or half of the people have to get a passport. Okay. What about just general public access to your digital product, to your your publications? What are the trend lines in terms of the general public usage? So just a standard citizen out there that wants to know something, and they know to go to your site and they know to access it. What's happening there? Is it up, down? What are you doing to facilitate it? Because these are appropriated monies, so.
Right, you're referencing GovInfo, our system of record?
Yes.
Yes. Rick, you want to take?
So I've had the good fortune of being around since we originally launched GPO Access back in 1993. So I've seen GPO Access transform to the federal digital system to now GovInfo. So we started out literally making 3 government publications available online, and now we have hundreds and hundreds in different collections. We're averaging, as Herb mentioned, about 31 million retrievals of information a month. Those are not hits; those are actually downloads of discrete units of
How does that
content.
measure in terms of a trend line over time? Is it going up or down?
It's going up significantly.
People are getting to it and
People
they
are-
are accessing it.
People are getting to it, and our goal right now is to add more content, particularly more historical content. So we have tons of day-forward information, but working through the superintendent of documents and making use of that salaries and expenses appropriation. We're also working with Congress as well as library partners to digitize more historical content and enhance that collection.
Okay, and then does the congressional appropriation itself, which is what we're talking about today, do you allocate that over in your own internal purposes? Do you allocate that to general public usage versus congressional usage? Do you slice it that way? Or is that just all Congress?
The information that we publish on behalf of the Congress is funded by the congressional appropriation, and then the data will be transferred over. For example, the library programs will ride the congressional work, and then the S&E appropriation or the public information program appropriation will reimburse the revolving fund for that. So it's Congress is only paying for Congress's, and other users pay a different way, either through the appropriation or through purchases of books through our sales program.
Okay, so then Congress, I guess my conclusion from the answers is that if you distinguish between Congress's needs itself and the general public, the appropriation we're talking about today stays with Congress, that's level funded, but in terms of your additional funding, your general public usage is going up. Is that right?
That's
Yes.
correct, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks, because he's got the gavel and he's going down.
I don't even have to hit it. Newhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to all of you, and appreciate you coming here. It's always interesting to learn more about all of the different facets of the federal government and the responsibilities and the things that we provide for not only Congress, but for the general public. So thank you for coming and sharing with us. I guess a couple things. It's a two-edged sword. I want to compliment you. From your written testimony, you talk about the partnership that you have with a lot of small businesses around the country, about 10,000 different that you contract with to produce a lot of the material that you're responsible for. So that's, those are small businesses in all of our districts, or at least a lot of them, I guess. So I appreciate that very much, and I think that speaks to the probably to the efficiency of how you have been managing the GPO. As does some of the numbers that you were talking about, Mr. Jackson, about I can't remember specifically, but your budget's been going down due to efficiencies and a lot of different things driving that. So that's kudos to you for that. But one of the things that Mr. Herrera Butler brought up was this contract issue for the census. And so I just wanted to, I guess, hear a little bit more about that. That seems to me, is that, I'm sorry to draw attention to that, but does that put into jeopardy your clean audit? The 23rd one may be at risk because of that? Or just to give me a little more confidence that, when you have 10,000 different agreements with vendors around the country, how something this major could happen.
Yeah. Thank you. No, that does not put in jeopardy our audit. In fact, I have asked the IG our GPO IG to continue auditing or investigating that particular procurement. So they're still looking at what went wrong there and ways in which it can be improved. And I expect to get that report hopefully before I leave. We have been working very closely with Census since this has, well, all the time, but especially since this occurred. I met during the shutdown with the principals at Census and with the new vendor to ensure that everyone was on the same page and everyone was comfortable. The new vendor, which is R.R. Donnelly, has been working on this contract. They've already made at least one deliverable. And we have every confidence, both Census and GPO, that there's not going to be any further issues with the Census contract. The other piece that you raised in terms of the ways in which we will make certain that this doesn't arise again, I think the protocols that we're putting in place, the SOPs that have been developed, the new contract review board directives that we are putting in place for all of our contracts, not just on the printing side, but even on the regular procurement side. We're doing this to ensure that we don't have a glitch like that. This one happened, but it has not affected the way in which we have that we continue to do business, and we continue to make certain that our contracts are awarded promptly, timely, and efficiently.
It has not.
It has not, no.
It should, shouldn't it? There should be lessons learned here, I think.
There are several lessons learned. One is that we should never think that a junior person, I'll use that term, should not have some type of oversight of contracts. Two, legal should be involved in looking at awards of contracts prior to them being made. Our general counsel's office has worked very diligently. Both the general counsel at Census, Commerce, and GPO have worked very closely to ensure that this current contract works and that there were no glitches as we saw in the first one.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I suppose a clean audit is measuring different
And
performance levels.
they are, but they did look at it, and they do look at the contract vehicles there.
Okay, I appreciate that. And thanks.
And we can also make certain that once the IG has completed their audit of that procurement, that you guys get a copy of that so that you see what their findings were as well.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And again, thank you for coming here, and I appreciate the enlightenment.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Jackson, and your team. We have a retirement gift for you, and that is we're going to end this committee hearing right now.
Thank you.
And,
Now I can
again,
breathe.
yeah, exactly. Maybe they can take you out to lunch or something, right? But on behalf of the committee, thank you for your years of service. We may
Thank
not
you so
see you.
much.
Enjoy your retirement. We'll be in touch, and thank you. We may have a few questions we may submit for the record.
Absolutely. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks.